I met a gypsy.
If you haven't watched all of our vlogs, go watch our vlogs on YouTube. We put in a lot of effort. The whole series is up there for anyone that's interested in watching. But it was really cool for me as a rider, like as someone that tries to get better at riding, that's not good at riding, and then to see footage of me riding the same track as like you and Regan and Cloudy. Like I've actually got, back-to-back footage.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see just the differences and how you can compare like body position and stuff like that. And even I think that from looking at like the practice footage, I went through and looked at all the footage of me riding and then looked at all the footage of you boys riding, and I made some changes based on like what I saw and actually think I got better at it. But it's so cool to be able to have that back to back on the same track, see the lines and just see the speed and cool thing with Manji, like, you got the Jim's jump and then the single and you go left and then you've got that big single.
Yep.
And like to see the point where you guys are landing off that thing and to see like, man, some of Regan and Cloudy's fucking scrubs off that thing. Like they are fucking wedged, man.
Yeah.
And like to have back to back footage of like me doing a thing on the same day, the same track, the same, all the conditions are the same, and then seeing you guys do it, you're just like, holy fuck. And you can see where the lap time is.
Yeah.
Like you can really see, like you said, you could fucking probably, if you worked on it, as like, say if me and you went and coached there the next day, I know you did a school, but like, man, you could probably drop the lap time down significantly just with like a bit of extra knowledge about like what you're doing and what place on what part of the track.
Yeah, and that's what makes racing really tricky. All the work's done during the week, because when you turn up on race day, it almost all goes out the window. Knees start coming forward.
Yeah.
The head starts coming away from the handlebars. Like you say, it's actually a difficult thing to hold the thing wedged.
Yeah.
Like it sounds stupid, but coming out of a turn when everything's happening, a lot of the time, like off start, sometimes you go, oh, I still got some more left.
Yeah.
Like, because on these new bikes, the throttles are quite long.
Yeah.
So, especially on a 450, because they got so much power that sometimes you don't think you need that. And half the time you're riding 3/4 throttle.
Yeah.
But it is, like I find with myself, I worked I've spoke about it before, I did a few days with Ben Townley and I just learnt so much off him. And it was like, I really just wish I could go back in time. Like, honestly, like I just really do, but you can't. And in 2019, I just focused on it. That's all I did. I'd get, honestly, at the Nationals, I'd get into the lead, like at Broadford, and I'd just go stand up, drop my heels, get my legs back, chin forward, and I'm just working on stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really enjoyable. It made riding fun for me, and I really worked on my technique. And then, this year's been really interesting because 2 weeks before the first round, we had a little Macy, and then COVID hit. So the guys phoned up and they were like, hey, if you don't get out of the state and they close the borders, we're running the race anyway. And I was just like, man. So we hired a camper van. But then, we ended up getting out, and then we just drove straight down and then raced the first round. So it was like, where I was getting with this was all this kind of happened at once, and then we're racing the first round of the Nationals. As soon as I went out on the track, like everything that I'd been working on for the last pretty much 2 years went out the window. Gone. I mean, like, I couldn't believe it. I just went out, my knees dropped forward, my chin come up, like, just everything. So pretty much where I got to, like, I look at it like, we raced overseas, whatever we achieved. I rode with pretty flat-footed, knees forward, and, head straight up, like straight back.
Yeah.
And the only way I got away with it was because I used to train extremely hard and I had strong core and really strong back muscles, like all my lats. And so pretty much like, Jesse Dobson always cracks off at me that I just deadlift the bike around, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
For 35 minutes, I'd just be coming, man, and I'd just be lifting my bike around. Line selection, like, I feel like that was one of my strengths, was picking lines and making it easier for myself. But at the end of the day, it just didn't work, like my technique. And I realized that when Ben spent 2 days with me and pointed some stuff out, I was just like, you shouldn't have done that, man. Like,
You've fucked me forever.
So basically my knees are forward, I'm flat footed, so all that does is put weight forward, which makes no weight on the back tire, so I spin everywhere. That's why I'm a good sand rider and a good rut rider, because I don't spin. As soon as I get on hard pack, I just light up the back tire. That's basically. So I worked heaps on getting my ankles down, stand on my toes. That brings the knees back, so then the head comes forward to compensate. And you get a spread out, balanced rider on the bike. The geometry, the bike works properly. Where
once it goes out the window, well, that's one of the things. Like, so it's funny. October 2019 was the first time that I did the Townley thing. That's the first time I ever started riding on my toes. And pretty much like I decided that day. I didn't really give a fuck because it's not like I was that fast anyway. I didn't really have speed to lose. But I was like, I'm done. I'm never not riding on my toes again. And I even said to myself, I was like, I'm just not going to use the back brake for like as long as it takes to get comfortable just being on my toes. And I like pretty much 2 years later, that's finally there. But then now, like, you've got to move on to like the next thing. It's like there's just these links that you've got to kind of fit together to get in the right position. And and so now it's like I feel like I got the riding on the toes dialed. Like even at Coolum on Tuesday, like I'm no problem. I can ride on my toes the whole time. Like that doesn't fuck with me at all now. But just everything else out the window as soon as it gets that rough, And then I even Crawford took a video and my knees. I was on like a slow. I was sort of just rolling, but even then my knees come forward, and I'm trying to make it so even when I'm like rolling and doing a slow lap, my knees are back. You can be in the right position even when you're going slow. But like, man, once it gets rough, like that shit just out the window.
But that's when it works. Like, the first thing I noticed with Ben was like for me, as soon as all I did is move my feet back, and that when I dropped my ankles, my legs moved back. And I just kept nearly flipping it. I was just like,
because your head was back.
But just the drive my back tire was getting. And then straight away, like going through rollers, instead of the back wheel coming off and going like that, straight away I was just manualing things, because I've been riding my whole life. So when you make a change like that, it just happens. Things happen. And straight away when I'm doing laps, like I'd scrub a jump, and then when I'd land, my legs would come and I'd push on the down ramp. I felt like I was riding a BMX bike just from moving my feet back, and my legs started working. I was just like, wow, like I've got such big muscles in my legs, but I don't use them. I just cramp them up. So but going back, like I raced Wonthaggi like the first round, like qualifying in the time qualifying, I had a big crash at the end of the straight because my knees were forward and all the weight went on the front tire, and it just folded and put me over the front. And I knew it, but I was so exhausted. My brain was
you were just fried
in a different place, that I was literally just going out there and I was just riding, and that's what happened. Like, I couldn't believe it that I'd worked on something for 2 years, but then when I just go into like a exhausted sort of just ride the bike survival mode, it just goes back. Like, I just couldn't believe it. And that's been my biggest challenge this year, is I'm like, man, I know how I'm meant to ride. Like how I want to, sorry. And that's been my challenge this year, is like just trying to weigh up that sort of stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I was pretty stoked. Like pretty much all the photos and stuff I saw, like Manji was not too rough to where I couldn't do my technique. So like that's pretty much what I focused on the whole time at Manji. I was like, okay, get it as good a start as you can, and then just ride around with good technique. Like that's all you got to do for this entire time. And I was able to kind of commit to that, but that's because it wasn't too rough. Like once it gets too rough, man, like, it's just fucking. And I mean, 125 at Coolum's probably just not the best fun for me anyway. That's my excuse. But yeah, it's like I was pretty stoked to stay in that headspace, because I know what you mean. Like Coolum was the same for me. Like there was no technique that was going on there. Like I was trying to do, I had my fucking bar pad pro thing on, my lap pro.
You probably couldn't even look at it.
Nah, dude. On the second or the third moto that I did, I stared at the fucking thing. I was just like, you need to look at the track, bro. It's like, I was talking to Townley after, I was like, you know when you're doing a bridge and you're just fucking staring at like, you're looking at the smallest number on the end of the seconds and you're just watching it. That's what I was doing on the third. I was like, fucking hit 12, you bastard. And that was just a 12-minute moto.
Yeah.
But gnarly too, as well. Like you go out to a track like Coolum when it's that rough.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other pro boys there. Mate, you were the one that put in the fucking effort. And it's like there's a number one player on the bike and, well, you were the fucking dude that did the most amount of laps. You were the dude that did, you know? So it's like it kind of becomes clear when you go to somewhere like that who's fucking doing the work, like because that's like the dog work, you know? And even me and Matt, like we knew it was going to be rough as fuck and we knew we were going to suck so bad, but we literally went there for that.
Yeah, but that's why I can't whip, because like, that's just the reality. Like as a kid, if there was a rough corner, I'd be trying to jump the bumps in and I'd be hitting the corner. And
if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.